Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? You dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. And we broadcast from 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. We have a listen line, works really well, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Gwyneth Isaac's with us, live from Australia. Welcome, Gwyneth.
Hello, Vincent. How are you?
I am well, and you?
I'm good, thank you. You know something? I apologise I didn't send you anything to talk about this week. But you know what? I've still got lots to talk about. Our politicians have been mouthing off against each other, haven't they? I don't know if you've been watching the news. But basically, Donald Trump rang up Malcolm Turnbull, okay, and they just had quite a conversation. And apparently it ended up with Donald Trump hanging up on Malcolm Turnbull. That's our Prime Minister for all the people out there. And, everybody in Australia is acting like it's the worst thing on earth. And do you know what the topic of the conversation was? Australia's refugee policy, you know. Mm-hmm. We have a refugee policy in this country where if people show up in this country unannounced, they get deported. And
what a great policy.
They absolutely do. And they usually get deported, except that they usually get deported through a terrible camp that would absolutely fail all international standards, which is totally shameful. Okay? And under Obama had actually agreed to take a bunch of so-called refugees who hold a certain religious belief mostly, and Australia was going to send them straight to, guess where? America, okay? And Malcolm Turnbull wanted to know if Donald Trump was going to keep to the old agreement, and to which Donald Trump reacted rather badly. And I say, well, he shouldn't have to take people from certain countries who hold certain beliefs that are against, that are a national security risk, basically. And I can see the point in that. But apparently, Malcolm Turnbull is expecting for the same old to happen, and somehow with Donald Trump, I don't think the same old's going to happen. But you know something? The same old has not been doing anybody well for quite a long time now. And, maybe politicians who actually give a rip about their own country is a good thing.
Yeah, I love it.
So.
Yeah, yep. I love it. You mentioned hanging up the telephone. I've only hung up the phone a couple times in my life on people. And once, half of those times, I was on the phone with a politician. And I'll tell you what happened. This politician was so angry that I hung up on him. He called me back and he was screaming at me, and he told me, he used a word that I hadn't heard before. Of course, I know what it means. It's just a word that I don't use. And he said I disrespected him. Now, we all know what that word means. We just don't use that word because it doesn't occur to us to use that word. But he said I disrespected him. And that is one of the highest offenses that you can lob toward a politician, not respecting a politician, because they think that we owe them respect. And to me, respect is something that is earned, not automatically guaranteed. I don't owe any politicians respect. As a matter of fact, I can't think of very many that I even like. I kind of like Donald Trump, though, because he's his own man. And I kind of like the fact that he's a gentleman. And when a lady arrives at the White House, he goes out there and greets her. He just doesn't send one of his aides, go get so-and-so. She's arriving at the White House. You go stand out there in the cold and wait for her. He actually goes out there. And he opens the doors for ladies. And he holds the chairs for ladies. These are things that I was taught when I was very, very young. And he does these things. And I don't remember seeing images of Barry the Bandit holding chairs for people, opening doors for ladies. I don't remember seeing any of that.
Thinking about his golf game.
Yeah. And
what 5-star golf course he's going to helicopter to next.
Yeah. I'm so glad that he's out of the press and out of the way. And by the way, we've had lots of personalities saying, that Donald Trump should be killed, executed, murdered. And, I got to tell you, that's from the other team. I can't think of one person I know throughout the entire Barry the Bandit regime saying, I want to kill Barry. Barry should be murdered. I can't think of one person saying the things that are being said about Donald Trump by high-profile people. I can't. It's an outrage. It's an outrage that they're saying these things.
Well,
it really is.
What they're saying when they're saying such things is actually high treason.
Yes, it is. And
death threats and this sort of thing against your nation's political leader is, to conspire to overthrow the government, which is high treason.
One day I was on the... okay, go ahead.
It's disgusting what they're doing. And, I don't think they even have the brains to figure it out.
Like Madonna.
They're too busy shouting whatever at the top of their lungs, which most of the time is just about unintelligible.
Yeah, just like today's music. Just like today's alleged music, which is unintelligible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I am so glad, actually, that Donald Trump did get into the White House, because the alternative was Hillary, otherwise known as Killary. Okay?
Sure.
And, because a number of years ago, Jim Miles wrote a book about Hillary. He called it specifically about those hellcats who seem to follow her everywhere. The likes of Madeleine Albright and Huma Abedin. They're just as disreputable as what she is. But in the end plate of this book, I think I mentioned this on your program before, get that book, Hillary's Hellcats. You can still buy it on Amazon. It's still there. I've checked it. And Jim Miles is a jolly entertaining guy, and he just really, really knows how to write. And, if she had been in, I would be in quite a major state of panic now. Not for any reason except that the woman is a high black queen witch. And she certainly probably would have had your nation and probably my nation just about nuked by now. She was champing at the bit for a war with Putin, and the thing is that Putin is actually a real guy. He loves his nation. He's strongly patriotic. There's no way he's ever going to sell his country out. And, and Hillary is a weak, Parkinson's affected, doddering, aging black witch who seems to be screaming, I'll get you and your little dog too. You know what I mean? She's just evil and scary and weak and dying, and I would have been really in a major state of panic now for very good reason, because I like my country and I don't want a nuclear war with the Russians.
Nor with anyone else. How about the story of the Clintons when they departed 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House, that they took with them some of the
cutlery.
There are claims that the Clintons stole White House possessions, furniture and art and things like that. And there's lots of questions about that, but allegedly they had to return that. So who do they think they are? Who do they think they are? Just, helping themselves. So I'm really, really glad to see them gone.
Yeah. And, another thing, Cliff High and his webbots, I know that he's one of the instructors. I'm really glad that you've made him an instructor, because he's a very fine guy, and every time one of his reports comes out, I really relish it, and I would advise all the listeners to go and purchase his reports when they come out, and I'll talk more about that when we come back.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jim Morris. He's an instructor as well. We'll be right back. Gwyneth Isaac's with us. She's in Australia right now. And Gwyneth, you live off the grid.
Yep.
And will you have some time to tell us a little bit about that today?
Okay.
What it's like, the challenges. And looking back, if you had the alternative to plug in to the power grid, would you do so?
No. It'll work. No. Because I'll tell you why. Okay? Those smart meters terrify me. Mm-hmm. The amount of radiation that they put out is just positively scary. All right? Mm-hmm. And I know that you have one or two of your instructors that are magi. Okay, I'm also a magi. I work as a professional psychic. Okay, and I'm very, very aware of energy. Okay, but basically everything that comes into your life because of energy, okay? So in other words, if you think on something long enough and you manifest energy around it for good or for bad, it is going to appear in your life, okay? Like, for example, when I was in Geraldton, I was working as a corporate PA for my cousin, okay, who was a department store executive. And, I kept on getting that song in my head. I'm not sure who sings it, okay, but it goes something like this. Oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? My friends all have Porsches. You know how it goes. Uh-huh. It's quite a famous song, and I just keep humming that all the time. And do you know something? Within a matter of probably about 2 weeks, my boss had bought a Mercedes-Benz C180, and guess who had the job of looking after it and got to take it home at night? Me.
Mm-hmm. And that was Janis Joplin. That was Janis Joplin, by the way.
Yeah. And it wasn't mine to keep, but I certainly had fun driving it around for a while. And it was a beautiful car, you know. But that's an example of how and that sort of made me realize, hang on, there's actually something to this, is that and the thing, getting back to the smart meters, okay, they can pump any frequency they want down that electrical wire, and it radiates out from the smart meter, and it does influence your thoughts. Absolutely no question about it. Just like the fluoride in the water, okay, dumbs you down and makes you open to hypnotic suggestion. Just like the 1080 HD TVs. Why do you need 1080 frames per second when the maximum number of frames that your brain can take notice of per second is between 60 and, if you're really good, 80? Why do they need the extra 1,000 frames per second? And I'll tell you why. Hypnotic suggestion, okay? And my guess is Norm Shealy would probably be the guy to talk about this. But I know that hypnosis is something that affects, that, you know, it's real. You know, I've seen and heard some remarkable things in hypnosis. It's not something that I do. But like I say, you've got to be aware that if you've got a smart meter, it's actually radiating out electromagnetic frequencies that carry a message, and that is being absorbed to a certain degree by your brain. So is the 1080 TVs, and the fluoride in the water helps set it all up. There's no way I would go back on the grid, ever, ever, ever.
When we come back, I'll tell you a little bit a story about what I learned with some of these frequencies. I learned this back in Virginia when I was working on the bench servicing computers. Guineith Isaac's with us. And Guineith, when I lived in Virginia a little over 10, 11 years ago, before that, I worked on computers, and I had a computer bench, and I would work on 1, 2, 3, up to 8 computers at a time, and I would install software. And what I found was I would take the covers off them, and I would look inside them, and I'd see what needed to be upgraded. I would look at the hardware. I would check the cabling, the connections, the cooling, and so forth when I was servicing them. And what I found is as the computers became faster and faster, the processors ran at higher and higher frequencies, I became more and more confused as I worked on them. And when they were at 25 megahertz, or 16 megahertz, that was no problem. 25 megahertz, no problem. But when they got up to 800 megahertz, I started getting really confused. And I couldn't remember what I was doing to each one. I had to write it down. And I had to have little notes in front of each computer so that I could say I did this step, and then I did this step, and I would have a checklist. And it's not because I was working on more computers than before. It was I was working on computers with higher frequencies. Same computer, same bench, same monitors, same keyboard, same mice, same everything, except the computer frequencies were higher and higher and higher. And I know for a fact that these high frequencies confuse me. No question about it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that they confuse other people as well. Maybe they just don't realize it.
Yeah. And make no mistake, by the way, this is a verified program to dumb society down and to keep the sheep in the abattoir pen. That's the name that we have here in this country for slaughterhouse pen, and to stop them from panicking when they see their fellow sheep going down the chute. That's actually, and Adolf Hitler was doing research into this very topic all through the time that he was in power in Germany, right from 1932 up until he vacated Berlin by whatever means in 1945. And, he had a certain number of his staff ended up at Nuremberg, but a large number of his other staff actually ended up being asylum seekers, funnily enough, and ended up being given political asylum within the United States. And others of them, of course, went to Argentina and Patagonia, and I think it was Jim Miles, actually, that did that research as well into, Adolf Hitler in Argentina. But you see, you've got to realize these people are actually doing this on purpose. They don't like you, okay, and they want you and people like you and people like me and people like Joe Blow down the road to never wake up to what they're doing, and they want us all dead because they consider us to be, in the words of Henry Kissinger, useless eaters. If you go on the internet and type in Henry Kissinger quote, useless eaters, you'll see it. It's a famous quote. That's what they think about us. They do not have goodwill towards us, okay? And they want to see us dead, which is why they're putting poison in the water, which is why they are bombarding us with all these electromagnetic frequencies that are scrambling people's brains, driving them insane, and giving them cancer and giving them birth defects, yada, yada, yada. Now, they, it's just absolutely gobsmacking. Here in Australia, we are, I believe, really close to the point of collapse, because I'll tell you why. My husband, Archie, when he was alive, he was also a seer, okay? He would say that he was getting messages from the Holy Spirit. But the thing is, every single thing that he said, ever, every one of them came true, except for just a few of them. One of them that he said was, before Jesus Christ comes back to this earth, what you are going to see is you are going to see Australia fall into a Mad Max world, okay? And what he was talking about was he was talking about the progression that you see through the Mad Max movies, okay? At the beginning of the first movie, it starts out the world's pretty normal, okay? And Max has the job of being a traffic cop. And he's a traffic cop who really likes fast cars. And he loves his work of chasing down the street races. And he has this high-powered car. This is the first Mad Max movie, okay? It's rather B-grade. It's not like the later ones that he did with Tina Turner. But the message is there. And you see the world, I won't say progress, regress through the Mad Max movies until you get the last one, which just came out a year or two ago, Fury Road, where basically it's an apocalyptic wasteland. And, even the few green spots that were there mostly are not there anymore. It's just, you've got to realize these people have a plan for you, and it's not good. And I'm really glad that they're beginning to lose a bit of power, because if they were not losing this power, we would all be in a very, very serious state very, very quickly. In Australia, we still have the same bunch of goons occupying our so-called government buildings. Apart from the immigration policy, like I say, I don't agree with the bit about them throwing immigration migrants into concentration camps, which is what they do with them at the moment. I do not agree with that, okay? But you've got to realize you've got prisons with riots on a weekly basis here, okay? Juvenile prisons and adult prisons are rioting on a weekly basis. You had, over a dozen people escape from a juvenile justice facility last week, and it took, I don't think they've still even caught them all, okay? They were headed all over the state. They were doing carjackings, and they were just making havoc. All right? You had another guy decided to drive his vehicle through a pedestrian mall, which is one of the busiest pedestrian malls in the whole country, where on an average day you'll have hundreds of thousands of people walk through this pedestrian mall. This guy drove his car straight through and he killed about 6 people. People are going crazy out there. I've got a friend and she has, family members in Melbourne suburbs, and she recently came back from a holiday in Melbourne. I said, is it as bad as everybody says it is in Melbourne? With the crime, with the, with everybody just going crazy. And she said, man, it's awful. I'm so glad to be back here in the bush. Yeah. And mind you, this lady, she's glad to be back here in the bush with the rampant police corruption that we've got around here, okay? And she actually lives in town, so she's still on the grid. She still has a lot of, there's more problems with crime in the town than what there is all the way out here. You've got to realise things are going nutso out there. And even with a new political regime, which I think in America is ultimately going to be a good thing, you've got to realise that we may be past the tipping point here. We may be already past the point of no return. And there might be a collapse anyway, no matter what Trump does, no matter what anyone does, because we might be already too far down the road and it might be unavoidable. You need to get off the grid because, there's no guarantee that your water supply is going to be there next year and uncontaminated comparatively. There's no guarantee that your electrical supply is going to be there, okay? There's no guarantee you're going to be able to pay for it all. There's no guarantee that your gas supply is going to be there. And if you live in a high-rise apartment where you have to have heating and cooling, and if you, and where you are reliant on the toilets being able to flush in that building when you're 20 stories up, really? You're in an extremely vulnerable state. What happens if the power goes out and the lift doesn't work and you have to go up and down 20 flights of stairs to go anywhere?
What happens if that... Okay. What happens if that sewer line gets plugged up, that exits that high-rise apartment building, and you live on the first floor? You're going to get...
Well, that's even worse.
You're going to get all the flushes from the second floor to the top floor.
That's even worse. Yeah, you're
and that's what'll happen.
Right. Yeah. And you know something? Living off the grid, it takes adjustment, okay? It takes a certain level of fitness, okay, for yourself. And you will have to get your children involved in the project if you have children, okay? And you will have to get them organised that at the moment the project is... last year had, satellite internet installed, okay? I have to point out to the kids at the moment just about every day, that beast that sits up on the roof and gets your internet out of the sky is a really hungry creature. It chews through the electricity. And if the internet's on after a certain hour during the day, you're not going to have any electricity tonight.
So the point is when you're off the grid, you've got X amount of resources and you can waste them or you can make them last. And it's up to you. And you have to plan so that you don't run out. Guineith Isaac's with us. And we've been talking about Australia. We've been talking about some of the corruption and the crime. And Guineith, we're seeing the same thing here in the United States. People are doing just outrageous things. They're jumping in front of trains. They are crashing their vehicles into people. They are sucker punching people they don't even know. on city streets, or just walking up to someone, and two or three of these young thugs will walk up to someone and just punch them and knock them out. And the person will become instantly unconscious and fall flat on his or her face, breaking their jaw, their nose, as they fall flat onto the pavement, the sidewalk. It's really weird what's happening to people, and it's totally unacceptable. And I blame it on a lot of things. I blame it mostly on the government. I blame it on the government training camps. They call them schools, where people are prevented from getting an education. I blame it on the government from removing hope, the American dream as it is. And I'm sure it's not just the American dream, it's the dream of most countries that are not third world, where you can strive for success, learn how to do things, start your own business, raise a family.
Some chance of having a reasonably good life. Correct.
And I blame it on the governments that we've had, the regimes that we've had, like the Clinton regimes, the Bush regimes, the Barry and the Bandit regimes. Those kinds of people have made it very, very difficult through regulation and taxes. We had an instructor by the name of Bob Chapman. May he rest in peace. A brilliant, brilliant man.
Yep.
He wrote a publication called The International Forecaster. He was on the air with me 2 hours a week until he died. And I asked him point blank, what happened? What happened where mom and dad had to work? Because prior to both parents working, dad just used to go to work. I'm talking about in the 1950s and the 1960s.
That's right.
Then the 1970s.
That's the sort of household that I grew up in. Was a single parent.
Then moms went to work. Then moms started working. And what caused that? And I asked him what caused that. And he said taxes and inflation. And he's absolutely right. Taxes crept up, and people said, wow, it's really getting tough. And they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out what happened to their income, where it now took two people to almost be able to make it. Now you're really fortunate to have a job. Yes.
Yeah. Here in this country, right? I listened to the lamestream for about an hour a day, maybe two. That's all I can stand, actually. Just to keep up with what's going on in this world. And you know what? They were saying that the poverty line in this country, that's the amount of money that you have to have coming into a household in order to be not in absolute abject poverty, is $800 a week here in this country. That's Australian dollars, okay? And I sat back when I heard that and I thought, wow, $800 a week. If I had $800 a week coming in, I would think I was a zillionaire, okay? We are living...
You'd have at least $41,600.
Yeah, and the thing is that because of our tax structure, if you have $800 coming in a week, you only get to keep $400 of it. It's a 50% tax rate because we've got marginal tax rates here. If you earn not very much money, you get a low tax rate, and if you earn more money, then you get a higher tax rate. And I thought, wow, $800 a week, I'd think I was a zillionaire. But then I thought to myself, actually, I'm on around about that now, okay, without the tax, because there's a certain government payment I'm eligible for, and just the little bit of money I get from my card readings, and that's about $400 a week.
Gwyneth, I'm going to be doing a solo for the next hour. If you'd like to join me, just stick around and we'll talk about tips and tricks.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, if you've got the time.
Yeah.
I've got some things I'd like to share. Okay, Gwyneth's going to be with us, and I'm going to teach things that I do and why I do them. Locked hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. This hour, Guineith is staying along with us, and what I thought I would do is teach you some of the things that I've done, things that I do to save money and to prepare for the long run. Now, if you choose to do any of the things that I'm going to discuss with Guineith today, please keep in mind to do your own research to see if you think that this makes sense, because some of the things that I'm going to say you might think are crazy. And some of the things that I do go against manufacturers' recommendations. They say absolutely, positively, do not do this. So if you choose to do some of these things, you're doing them at your own risk. But I will tell you that I do them, okay? I'm not making these things up. These are things that I literally do that I found work for me. And let me give you an example of this. Now, there's no risk in doing this, this particular item. But how many of you have bathtubs and shower curtains? Many of you do. And how many of you have shower curtains that are made with vinyl or some kind of a plastic? Probably most of you that have shower curtains. Well, how many of you have seen in a hotel or a motel what they use is this fabric liner with a shower curtain that's decorative on the outside? Mm-hmm.
Put it through the washing machine.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you, Guineith.
I'll say, if you put that through the washing machine,
Yep.
you can wash them easily. You can't wash the vinyl curtains easily.
That's exactly right. You're right on the money. So here's what I've done. So when we built our farmhouse about 11 years ago, I decided that the way to go would be to have a 5-foot shower pan made out of fiberglass type plastic with porcelain tiles on the outside, traditional, and then a shower rod and a shower curtain. So I bought a couple of these nylon, and you can get them in rayon as well, and they're shower curtains, and they're very light. They're a light fabric, and they have little weights at the bottom to hold them vertical. And when you take a shower, they will get wet. But if, when you get out of the shower, you spread them out almost the full width, leave a little room on the left and on the right side so that air can get behind into the shower stall itself, and dry the walls and dry the shower curtain, what you'll find out is that they don't get moldy. They breathe and they drain very quickly, whereas the vinyl shower curtains don't breathe on the inside, and they trap moisture on the shower walls, the shower floor pan, and the shower curtain. And I've never seen anyone's house who has a vinyl shower curtain that doesn't have mold somewhere on it.
Yeah.
They all do. And the showers themselves seem to grow black mold when they have these, and even tub showers have black mold. So this is a great way to go. Now, how much does it cost? Well, I think we paid about $10 each. So we have 2 showers like this, and there's one in each shower, and we have a spare. And how long do they last? I don't know, because the 2 that we're using every day, multiple times per day, still look almost as good as they looked when they were brand new. And as you said,
Well,
Guineith, what we do...
Use in the hotel business.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because they operate their housekeeping as a business. And if they are constantly having to replace stuff, they are losing money. They have board meetings, in a hotel management to say, well, this particular DVD player, we've had to replace 10 in the last fortnight in a 100-room hotel. Oh, well, we won't buy them again. Can you research what's the best DVD player? Oh, all right. Yeah, off we go. Whatever.
And that's a very good point, because when I buy things, I will type in whatever that typical item is, like DVD player, for example. I will type in DVD player best value, DVD player opinions, DVD player reviews, and then I will find, then there are some there's some braggadocio going on, and there's some marketing going on, and some of these opinions are skewed in favor of specific products, and it may not be true. But what I do is I do further research to determine if it is true. And then I'll kind of zero in on that particular make, model of the product. And then I'll shop for price. Yeah. And that's kind of how I do that. Getting back to the shower curtains, you can simply put them in the washing machine with just a little bit of detergent. Why a little bit? Because your shower curtain already has soap on it from taking a shower. And so just a little bit of detergent works really well. And a lot of water is what I use. And on the gentle cycle. And then when it's done, what do you do with it? Well, you carry it back into the bathroom and you hang it right where it was. And it'll dry within a couple minutes, right there.
I was going to say, just hang it up where it was. It's going to get wet anyway. Best place to hang it, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. We generally here, we take baths rather than showers for a very good reason. A lot of people think that you use more water in a bath, but that really depends. With a bath, you can tell how much water you're actually using, okay? And the bathtub that we have is a big, deep, old, claw-footed bath. I don't know how old it is, actually. It was in the house when we bought it. It's a pair of...
You're talking about a clawfoot...
Back in clawfoot.
If you're talking about a clawfoot cast iron porcelain-covered tub, you're talking about early 1900s.
Yeah. And the thing is it was a pair of hippies built this house back in the 1980s. And it's an adobe mud brick house. And very, very cool in the summer and very warm in the winter and that's a good thing because we often have extremely hot summers and extremely cold winters where we are. And if anyone is contemplating a move to the countryside, okay, and you're looking to move somewhere like Arizona because you think it's going to be warm, what you have to realize is that they have snow in Arizona in the winter. It's actually really, really, really cold there during the winter. And the summers are baking hot. You've got low precipitation. If you're going off the grid there, you have to have a big, long, hard think about your water use because we live in a semi-arid area in country Victoria, Australia, and we live in a eucalyptus forest, 60 acres of eucalyptus forest. That's all the firewood we will ever need. I say to the boys at about 5 o'clock at night, right, go and get some wood. And they go out into the forest. Half an hour later, they come back carrying, logs on their shoulders, and they get the axes out and they just chop it up. And, initially they were kind of a bit reluctant about doing this. And I said, it's like this. Do you want to be warm tonight? Do you want to have cups of tea and nice hot food? Hey? Do you want to have a warm fire? And they said, yeah. So you don't want to be cold? You don't want to eat cold food and have, cold things to drink tonight? No? Well, chop the wood. That's how they saw the point of that, And it's good. And you know something? If you look at photos of kids, by kids I mean adolescent teenagers, who lived like 50 and 100 years ago, you occasionally see pictures of them. They had defined muscle mass, okay? Not much fat, and they had muscle, and they were good-looking kids. These flubber balls that you get around in the high schools today, are just, I drop my jaws and shake my head. I think, what is going on here? I look at my kids, and they are muscly. They probably have just about the right proportion of body fat. There's genetics in there too, because no one who's healthy in our family has much body fat. It's just genetic, okay? But the thing is that my son the other day put a bodybuilder-type photo of himself, a selfie, onto his Facebook page, and he said, Mum, suddenly all these girls are friending me. And I said, well, no wonder. They all want to be his friend. And he says, I got hardly any male friends on Facebook. And I say, well, no wonder. Look at you. You know? This is from good diet, hard work, and a normal life with water that's not full of a whole bunch of pesticides and crud and fluoride. This is normal. And he said, Mum, I don't look like the other kids. And I says, I know, you look normal. This is normal for people to look healthy.
Right.
You know? And for you know, my son, he's going to be 16 later on this week. Okay? So, and like I say, he's beginning to look like a real young gentleman. If you look at Alex Jones, when he was 18, he looked like somebody that you would actually want to be around as a female. The men today out there, if you're looking at them as a woman, you think, you don't want to be around this man and you can't see any value in him ever procreating.
Guineith Isaacs is with us. She's in Australia. Guineith, when I find something that I like, that's a good value, and then it's on sale at a deep discount, I'll tend to buy a bunch of it, if it will last. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm talking about is soap. And what I found out was there, in the shower, and if you go to other people's houses, if they have a shower, typically they will put the bar of soap on the ledge that is in the shower stall. Not in a soap and razor rack, if you will. They'll just put it on that shower wall. And the shower wall has a problem because it's designed so that the soap doesn't go sliding off it. But by doing that, water sits there. So what happens is the soap will sit in a pool of water and it will start to disintegrate right there, and you won't get the full... Right. And you don't get the full value of the soap because it just goes down the drain without being used. So there are a couple of things I want to talk about in terms of soap. So what I do is I buy soap that I like in quantity, and then I open the packages. So, for example, if it's a plastic wrapped 12-pack, I will open the plastic and discard the plastic. And then I will open the ends of each one of the packages so that air can get to it. And the reason is I found out that if the soap is harder, it lasts longer, way longer than if it's this soft, creamy bar. That's one thing. The other thing I found out is that if you have a soap rack, which you can get and hang it from the shower rod where the water comes out, if it's one of these wire-type racks that's coated with some kind of a plastic that won't rust, air can get to the soap and dry it off, and it will last way longer. How much longer? I'm thinking 4 times longer. Yeah. So by just getting that shower wire rack and putting the soap on it so it can dry out between showers, rather than put it on that ledge, if someone has a ledge in their shower or tub surround, that the soap will last so much longer. So it's really simple. Let the air get to the soap before you use it. Open the end of the package and put it on that wire rack. Yeah.
And then all you have to do is educate your adolescent children that the soap goes in the rack.
Yeah, that's all.
And it doesn't.
That's all.
It doesn't sit at the bottom of the bathtub. Sometimes we leave the bath water for a while. You know, because if you need to have a quick wash, okay, and if you're living off the grid, I'll tell you how we organise our water, okay. We have a roof catchment here. It flows into 2 tanks. One of them is 17,500 litres and the other one is 22,500 litres, okay. That's 40,000 litres of stored water. Okay? It sounds like a lot, but if you think about how much water the average household uses in a week, it's not a lot. Okay? We use 1,000 litres of water every week. So if we get no rain at all for 40 weeks, okay, we're okay. We're all right. And it might not rain here sometimes for 26 weeks at a time. And if you are moving to an arid area, that's what you have to bear in mind. And to keep a track of that 1,000 litres a week, we have a tower that sits just outside of our bathroom, okay? And it's a water tower. And on top of that water tower sits an IBC cube, food grade, okay? FDA food grade IBC cube with the pipes going into the water supply. That provides the pressure rather than one of these water pressure pumps. Those pressure pumps use a huge amount of electricity, okay, every single time. And if the power goes out, you've got no water. That's, is that the end
Great
of the
point.
show?
No, we've got another 2 segments, another half hour to go.
Oh,
And we've got those same IBC. Yep. Got one half hour to go. We'll be right back. Well, Guineith Isaac's with us, and she's in Australia. And if you'd like to get in touch with her, there's a link on the website, usaprepares.com, page number 1. You can find her there, and you can find her on the instructors tab at usaprepares.com. Guineith Isaacs. Guineith, we're talking about water, and so the question is, how much water does the average person use daily at home? And the estimates range between 80 and 100 gallons of water per day.
Whoa.
And that's in the United States. That's a tremendous amount of, absolutely, tremendous amount of water. So when people think about our cows might drink 30 gallons a day. 100 cows, 3,000 gallons of water a day. That's an enormous amount of water. But that pales in the comparison to the average person. Maybe sitting behind a computer, going to the job, sitting behind a computer, entering data or whatever they do, using 80 to 100 gallons of water a day.
Are these guys like having 3-hour showers or what? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, in our case, in our case, we have showers. I bought a tub, but I haven't installed it yet. So we only take showers here right now, but I'm going to change that. And I bought a shower head that is very interesting. It's about $6. You can get them on eBay. And it would be considered a high-pressure, low-volume shower head. So when you use this thing, it kind of almost atomizes the water. It's not like one of those showers that uses 5 gallons a minute. It's not like that at all. Some people think that they need to do that. Well, I don't want to cut that much wood to heat that much water to waste it, in the shower like that. Yep. So I know where that heat comes from. It comes from us cutting wood in order to heat the hot water for our showers and our domestic hot water use. And dishwasher and washing clothes. We don't wash clothes in hot water, but washing dishes and so forth. Bottom line is we use very little water in the shower because we have this high pressure, low volume. And it's kind of like what you would expect coming out of one of those high pressure washers, but nowhere near that much pressure. But it's like that kind of a mist. Works really well, and I suggest that class you consider that for saving water. But it's one of the things that I think is a little bit adventurous, if you will, in me telling the class this. One of the things that may involve risk on their part if they decide that they want to pursue doing this, and do your own research. Don't believe anything I say about this class. But here's what I do. There's a compound called copper coat. Copper coat, COPPER, and then coat. It's an anti-seize / lubricant. Now, I know that there are certain nuts, bolts, and studs that I'm going to have to remove over and over and over and over again. And that's on the tractors, and that's on the trucks and the vehicles here we have at the farm. So when I take a wheel off one of these vehicles, let's say it's a pickup truck or a car, I take the wheel off, I will loosen them by hand. I will use a breaker bar and a 6-point socket, and I will loosen them by hand. I'll take them off, and when I go to put the wheel back on, I will coat the threads of the stud or the threads of the wheel bolt with this copper coat anti-seize lubricant. And it's like a combination of small, finely ground copper, the consistency of flour, and oil. And I'll paint the threads with that. And I'll also paint the surface of the bolt or the wheel nut that contacts the wheel as a lubricant. And the reason I do that is so that I can take it apart easily and not wear out the threads of the nut and bolt or stud and nut. Now, when you do that,
especially useful for those in the class who happen to be female, because like it or not, we are just not as strong as men, and especially the female class members who are perhaps north of 40, because we're especially not as strong as men. And, you know, like I say, it's, you see what men are capable of lifting and moving, you know, it's quite amazing to see. But the difference is women are strong, especially if they are out and about doing stuff all the time, but we can work for longer. If you look and see a woman who comes off the land, who's used to doing stuff, she can work all day, every day, okay? And still at the end of it, if she's a good-natured woman, she will still have kind words to say to people. Yeah, and that's,
I agree with that. And I'd like to talk about some of the cautions with doing what I just talked about. Now, sometimes I will use a synthetic grease instead of copper coat. And sometimes I'll alternate between copper coat and synthetic grease. When I talk about synthetic grease, I'm talking about it comes in a container. You can get it typically at the Chinese factory outlet, and it's red in color. And it's used for wheel bearings, and it's used for all kinds of things. It's a fabulous, fabulous grease. I like it. Anyway, I will put it on wheel studs, and I'll put it on wheel nuts and other types of fasteners. And I will torque, well, I'll use a breaker bar, a long breaker bar like 25 inches, half-inch drive, and the appropriate socket, and I will loosen, after I jack the car up, or the truck up, or whatever it is, safely, I will then loosen the wheel bolts. And when I replace the wheel, of course, I will use that copper coat, as I mentioned, and I will torque the wheel bolts down by hand. So I'll start with about 25 pounds, and I'll go in a star pattern. And then I'll go to maybe 40 pounds, and then 60, then 80, and then 100. And I'll do the star pattern. And the reason I do that is so I don't bend the wheels. Now, if you've been to one of these tire change places, or what they'll do is the guy will take that impact gun, he'll put the first stud on, and he'll run it tight. Done. And then he'll put the other ones on. And what that generally tends to do is bend the wheel. And you can't fix it. Once the wheel's bent, yes. And by running up that one nut or bolt tightly, or wheel bolt, it can tend to damage steel wheels. And I'm not going to let that happen, because I know how the discussion would go. You just bent my wheel. No, I didn't. It was like that. No, it wasn't. You just bent it. And you can't win that argument. No. So if I have to have someone else work on a wheel, which is never, I would say on the agreement to have them change the tires, replace the tires, it must be broken by hand and hand torqued by hand. And then I will watch to make sure that that's done. But they hate it because it's extra work and it takes 5 times longer. But here at our farm, we have impact guns. We have them. But we don't use them for torquing lug nuts on wheels. Now, the risk that I'd like to share is that it's possible that these lug nuts can come off because they're greased or they have copper coat on them, anti-seize. Now, the manufacturers will tell you don't ever do that because they don't want the wheel bolts coming off or the wheel nuts coming off.
Well, You've got to
However,
be
I take them on and off. I take them on and off so many times that they would wear out, and I don't want that to happen. So that's why I do it. So what you can do to reduce your risk of having your wheel come off is retorque them after the first time you travel with that vehicle.
Yeah.
Retorque them and check them. And so how much does a torque wrench cost? You can get a torque wrench at the Chinese factory tool outlet, also known as Harbor Freight, for less than $20. And I suggest y'all consider getting one of those. $20, and it should last a lifetime. Now, I don't like the electronic type. You can get the kinds that are battery operated. I like the ones that are mechanical. I have my mechanical torque wrench. I bought it used. Yeah. I bought it used, and it was $20 for, it's a Proto brand, Proto. I bought it used about, 25 years ago for $20. And I'm still using it. So it's a real old one, but it works great. So I suggest you consider that as well. And what else do I use copper coat on? Spark plugs. Why? Yeah. Because some engine heads are made out of aluminum. And aluminum is pretty darn soft compared to cast iron. Some heads are made out of cast iron. Well, the last thing I want to do is tear up the threads of an aluminum head on an engine. So I use copper coat because I know I'm going to have to change those spark plugs again. Yeah. So that's just one thought about a trick of the trade, if you will. Now, most mechanics don't use that because they don't think they're going to see that vehicle again. But if it's your vehicle and you plan on keeping it for a long time, why not do that? Now, how much is copper coat? Well, the last time I bought it, it was a little less than $10 for 8 ounces. And that was probably 15, 20 years ago. Now I find it's the same brand. I can't find anymore, but now it's the same container, but it says Permatex brand on it. Looks like it's the same stuff. Different company packaging it, and it's $14.88. And if you keep the lid on it, it should last 20 years in normal use. So that's one of the things that I do to save time, save money, and keep things lasting longer. Guineith, do you have anything you want to share, or do you want me to continue?
Well, when on the topic still of wheels, this might seem to be, for you and me, this is just something that we know and is so basic that, we don't even have to think about it. But wheel nuts do up in a clockwise direction. Okay.
Yeah, and if you let's talk about that when we come back, because this
in an anti-clockwise direction. Wheel nuts do up in a clockwise direction.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Class Guineith Isaacs is with us, and she's in Australia. And if you'd like to contact her, usaprepares.com, page number 1, contact information, also on the instructors tab at usaprepares.com. Guineith, we were talking about wheel bolts and clockwise and counterclockwise. So you make them tighter by turning them clockwise, and you loosen them by turning them counterclockwise. I'm so glad you mentioned this. When our daughter was learning how to operate a motor vehicle, I said that she could use the family vehicle if she did certain things. And there are about 20 items on this list that I had that she had to agree to in order to use the family vehicle. And one of them was to be able to change a tire by herself. And she thought, why do I have to do that? Well, she did. Why? Because I said so. And so I handed her the jack, and I said, okay, I'll watch you. And she had to read the instructions. And so she put the jack under the vehicle and, properly secured it so it wouldn't roll and so forth. And she put the lug nut on the lug nut wrench on the lugs, and she had it at the 3 o'clock position. She was pulling up, and she couldn't do it. I said, well, how are we going to fix this? What if you're by yourself? And so she thought about it, and I said, let's try this. Let's take it from the 3 o'clock position and pulling up on it to the 9 o'clock position, and let's just make sure it's firmly on that lug nut. And then you can step on the end of this lug nut wrench with your foot, pushing down. Rather than pulling up at the 3 o'clock position, move it 180 degrees to another direction and push down. And she stepped on it with her foot, and sure enough, it loosened. Yeah. So there are things that you can do. And that's the trick. That's how to do it.
And another thing is, keep a hammer in your wheel wrench kit. And if you have trouble, because often just after you move that first little fraction of an inch, the rest of it will come off real easy, okay? If you keep a hammer in your kit, in your tire changing kit, and you're having trouble getting a lug nut off, you can get that hammer out and give that wrench a tap in the appropriate direction, okay? Making sure, like I say, if you're taking it off, you're going in an anti-clockwise direction. You can do that, okay? These are mechanical things, and actually, my dad was a master engineer, and that was a method that he would use sometimes for getting a recalcitrant wheel nut off, is that he would get a hammer out and he would give that wheel wrench a bit of a tap with the hammer. And you can even be, maybe not so gentle with the hammer, but it might pay if you have somebody there to hold the wrench as well, especially if it's the T-bar type, because it might be a bit hard to hold the end and then, tap it. But I wouldn't be so game to do that with one of the ratchet types. I think that you'll end up wrecking the ratchet. Okay?
Sure.
So if you're going to do that trick, I would be using the old-fashioned T-bar wheel wrench, which is handy anyway because it has 4 different sizes of nuts.
You're talking about a cross wrench, X.
Yeah.
X wrench.
That's right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. What I do is I keep a breaker bar, a 25-inch breaker bar, right next to me in the truck and in the car. And the reason I keep it next to me is I never know what I might have to tune up. I might have to tune up some lug nuts or some thug.
I was going to say it would be handy for dealing with the odd carjacker as well, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, that would be second. That would be my second choice, the lug nut wrench. But you might have to break out your own window. Like let's say you're trapped in a vehicle that's on fire and you can't get the door open. That lug nut wrench is heavy enough to be able to bash through the corner. Let me say it a different way. Start the corner of your window.
Yep. I think that's the end of the show, Vincent.
Wow, 2 hours. Gwyneth, thank you so much.
That's all right.
Thank you for being with us. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you again for being with us, Gwyneth, and sharing life in Australia and some of the tips and tricks that you implement in your life. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.